get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show.
Thank you so much for joining me, Denise and Matthew. Can I get you to introduce yourselves to everybody?
Hi, I'm Denise O'Keefe and I'm the Managing Director of Whoop Jobs, and we specialise in the industry recruitment, so all things audiovisual, specialising in permanent vacancies.
Hi, I'm Matthew Gannes. I'm the Head of Permanent Recruitment at Jacobs Massey. We specialise in permanent freelance recruitment and also live production provider. Yeah, that's me. In
terms of candidates, what are they up against now in terms of opportunities or discrimination? Is it getting better? Is it the same? What have you seen? So the candidates who might fall under the 6 strands of the Equality Act, for example, so that's age, gender, race, religion, sexuality, and disability. Do you get many candidates from those?
Yes, we do. Well, yeah, I do. And the one thing that they're up against is, I would say it's like sometimes an internal thing where it's like their confidence. Their confidence isn't always actually at their highest, because I feel like something that we mentioned earlier about they don't want to be, no one wants rejection. Like, no matter where they come from or what they do, no one wants rejection, and no one wants to put themselves out there to be rejected. So sometimes it's a case of their confidence is severely knocked, and maybe even not even knocked, it's just not there. And they apply for a role, but then it comes, when you do have a conversation with them, you realize actually you can do a lot more. And maybe you should try to potentially try this opportunity. It's like, oh, that may not be for me. It's like, no, your skill set actually does match that. But it's just about putting yourself out there and just giving them the actual push to say, yeah, I can do that, and yeah, I should apply for that, and then helping them along the actual recruitment process. That's what I find.
Yeah, confidence, I think, is a tricky one.
I think that's right, Matthew, where, yeah, we're like supporting people in these situations if they have had a particular incident or situation or company experience which has, I say, scarred them, for want of a better word, but, affected somebody. Then we try to, boost their confidence, work with them with that. And I think the reality is, yes, there are people all the time, daily basis, coming through looking for jobs who are part of the 6 strands of diversity, who fall into those categories, and others. So, there are other areas outside of that also. And I think it's really helpful sometimes for a candidate to see, what I've noticed happening more and more with clients is, putting a policy in place and putting a statement on the bottom of their job specs, which says that they are inclusive and that they are not going to be judging on, on these factors. And therefore, when we're providing a job spec to candidates, they're all, they can see the company's intent and they can see that they have a policy, which can help to reassure. But certainly as recruiters, some of that is our job, to give them the confidence about their skill set.
And obviously you're representing your clients as well as the candidates. You're kind of having to do a double sale. So you're selling the organisation to the candidate to the organisation. What is it about certain organisations that would make them attractive or unattractive? Or what is it about a candidate who falls into one of those strands, who thinks, actually, I've had a look at that organisation and from their website or whatever, or I know somebody, and it doesn't seem to be an organisation where I could belong? What can organisations do to attract the right people?
Well, again, I think that there's, policy statements, etc., which could be on company websites, which gives a real clear indication that they are embracing diversity and that they have, they have that focus. So that's one thing to check out. But personally, I would always encourage, I think I'm sure you'd say, Matthew, you get a good understanding of your clients' cultures. It's part of what we do. So
Yeah.
then we try and understand a candidate's sort of cultural needs and what they're looking for. Well, we ask them what kind of culture they work well in, and then try and marry the two up. But you never really know until people meet, because actually it can be really even just down to meeting your hiring manager as to how you feel, you know, from a rapport perspective and a cultural perspective. So you can never really quite tell until two people meet, even with
No,
what
and
you
it's
have
hard
to
to know, isn't it? It's hard
Mm.
to know whether they actually it's
Connect.
the talk the talk and walk the walk. You know, they might
Yeah.
have all these things, statements, but what is it really like? You know, often you don't know that until you
Yeah.
actually get into an organization. You won't
Yeah.
know that. So obviously you're that bridge.
And some of it might be even obvious stuff, like let's say if you're disabled and you go to an office for an interview and you're actually looking at what facilities do they have in place for me here? Can I easily access the building? Is there, you know, restrooms and things that I can use? So in that situation, yeah, you know, it's literally in front of your face, working out how this might work out for you in you know, if you're disabled.
Yeah, something which is obvious. So something which, and what one thing which companies could do is just continuously question how they can do better, and just begging the question and acting on some of the actual answers, if it makes sense. So all well and good asking questions, what can we do? But then with the questions, answering them and actually actioning them. And if you see that action, you see that progression, that's what will be attractive to people to actually say, actually, that looks like a progressive and growing company. And that's one thing what people do usually go for when they are looking for a new opportunity, is a progressive, forward-thinking company, rather than a company that can, and in particular more now more than ever, I would say a good working atmosphere is what people look for, because we've gone through a time where people have been working from home, and where people are, let's say, not, when they're in an uncomfortable situation at work, they just say, look, I don't need this, I'm gonna go. And it's gone of the day where you can, like, let's say someone that is uncomfortable and just continues to work and just work through the stress. People don't do that anymore. So to have a company that will work with you and for you, yeah, it's definitely appealing for actual most potential candidates, and in particular the candidates that are a part of the 6 strands of equality.
You've touched on something that's taken me back, actually, because I remember, I'm showing my age now, but going back about 20 years or so when I was in recruitment, one question that as a recruiter I would ask is, why are you leaving your current job? But I would always encourage people going for interview to ask, what happened to the person before? Like, why is there an opening? And often employers weren't comfortable answering that question, because it wasn't always a positive kind of situation. Sometimes it was nice, it was about growth, and it was a new role or whatever, but that, you know, we all know that that's not often the case. How do you actually, if you know that there's something not quite right, how do you actually, how honest can you be? Are you allowed to be, or are you bound by kind of any confidentiality?
In what kind of situation do you think, Iffat, like if somebody had left due to an issue around those 6 strands?
Yeah.
I personally think we'd struggle to then recruit for that client. You know, we wouldn't then be trying to refill it, because it just wouldn't fit with our ethics. So I think that would just make it quite clear for us if there had been a discrimination of any sort, and I don't think we've ever had that, but if there had been the discrimination of any sort where the candidate was unhappy with how they'd been treated, and, you know, we could see a situation had occurred, we wouldn't be able to hand on heart work with that client going forward, because we can't knowingly put candidates into a company which is not giving people a voice, a place, a comfortable place to be. So that would be how we would deal with that situation.
From a candidate's perspective, One thing that has come up in various conversations I've had with people is that they didn't want to be the one to blow the whistle.
I'm sure, yeah.
And they didn't want to be the one who spoke up when they saw discrimination in an organisation. And so a couple of people are in my head right now who have told me things that happened, and they took themselves out of that situation. They left the organisation, which doesn't make it better for anybody, really. It makes it fine, better for that person to have moved, and they'd withdrawn their talent from that organisation. And that was as far, because what they were worried about was they don't want to be the one who's labelled as a troublemaker. So how do we encourage candidates to be more honest about why they've left somewhere? Because often people won't want to tell the full story because they don't want prospective employers to think that they're trouble.
Well, it's just changing that word from trouble into troublemaker to change maker. Like, you are trying to influence change. It's not that you're trying to like actually cause any sort of trouble and discomfort, because the reason why they left that certain position was because they didn't feel comfortable. So they are trying to lay the foundations for it to be comfortable for other people and for that environment to be comfortable. So then other people don't necessarily need to leave, I would say. So it's just about changing that word. It's not about being a troublemaker. Do you want to create change? Do you want it to be better for other people? Then yeah, change the word mainly, and changing the actual perception of what you are actually doing.
And for me, one way to do that would be through an exit interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I also know in a lot of places it doesn't exist. There is no, and people who want to leave, then they just don't want to do it. They kind of just tick. Even if there is a process, there's very few people who would be probably brave enough or honest enough with that employer to say, actually, these are the reasons I'm leaving.
Yeah. And I think with candidates, probably often, the reason that is the broad reason for these types of situations is cultural fit. So, just a feeling of not belonging, not the right place for somebody. And what, how deep you dig into that is, depends on the candidate. They do tend to be, I think candidates can be quite trusting, and whether, you take that information on to someone else, you'd always talk with the candidate about, because they know we're, the confidant, if you like, in the middle. But I think it must be really difficult if you've experienced these things to actually speak up to a point to take it further than that. Then telling somebody is one thing, but what if you're going to actually try and do something about that, where you then lay yourself wide open, must be really very difficult indeed. And I can imagine there's not many people that actually go that far at all.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take